Hello guys, guys and gamers, and welcome back to another video. Before we begin, I would just like to remind you guys to please like and subscribe. Our channel is doing pretty well, but we are still in like 200 subscribers. I would like to grow, maybe up to 500 subscribers to the end of the year. It would be fun. There's a lot to go, but I think we can make it. Yay, hooray. And also comment down below because I really want to start a discussion with my videos. And today we will be discussing something of a theory of mine. And I'm pretty sure that this will happen, like 99% sure that this will happen. And it's a good theory because it involves you, yes, you, the viewer, saving money when you buy Nintendo Switch games. And yeah, I'm 99% sure that this will happen. The big question for me is when will this happen? And that's where the theory part starts. Also, the big question, well, probably for your perspective, is like, what are you talking about? Please let me know. How can I save money? Well, it's time for another history lesson. Yay! It's hard to, predict the future if you do not know the past. So that's why we're going over things. And this all started in 1996. Nintendo invented a new label which to sell games under. This was called Player's Choice. It included games that have sold over 1 million copies. Most of them, I think, were published by Nintendo, made by Nintendo. When put into stores, some games were reprinted, and got a new box art saying Player's Choice. And what was really exciting about this, that it of course came with a price cut. I think around that time, it was the SNES and the Game Boy days. It was around like 33 or 25% price cut. Nothing that huge, but still cheaper, much cheaper as like the base price. And this continued for a very long time. I think I'm not sure if the N64 had this, probably did as well, but like the GameCube had this and blah blah blah. Then later on, I think it was around 2006. During the Wii days, they wanted to do Player's Choice again, but they changed the title to Nintendo Selects, and that's probably the label you know better because it has appeared in like Wii games, Wii U games, 3DS games, and it's basically the same thing. Games that have sold really well become much more affordable under this like new label. And I think this will happen with the Switch too, of course, at some point. But the problem kind of here is, there's two problems. First of these problems is that the Nintendo Selects usually appears only on the last year of a console's life cycle. For Nintendo Wii, it was like 2011 when we finally got Nintendo Selects games. And then Wii U launched in 2012, of course. And then Wii U got its own Nintendo Selects games in 2016, with of course Switch launching in 2017. However, this is not true for all of the consoles because it is a peculiar case with the Nintendo 3DS that actually started getting Nintendo Selects games for a few years, starting from 2015, then also in 2016, 2017, and even until 2018, because Nintendo 3DS was a really popular console. And the second problem here is the Nintendo Switch is really popular and the games just keep selling and selling and selling. There's no really a need for a price cut. Nintendo games are really kind of famous for being expensive. And to be honest, they're not. They're not expensive, but the price just never goes down. That is kind of the problem. And if you go to like a store, buy a brand new PlayStation 5 game or an Xbox game, it's like $70, and Nintendo games are usually like $60, so kind of cheaper. But if you go in a year later and buy that same game for some reason, it's half price or maybe like 30% off by default. But Nintendo games, nope, still the same 60. And it is, yeah, definitely weird because Nintendo kind of wants to keep that value up. Seemingly, like if you see two Zelda games when you go to store and you're like a casual buyer, consumer, mainstream guy who doesn't know much about gaming, you go to store, see two Zelda games, and see that they are, well, one is $60, one is $40. You might think like, hey, that other Zelda game is somehow worse or less valuable. And Nintendo doesn't want to think that. They value their franchises very highly. And that's why you have, if you see two Zelda games, but one is like 3 years old and one is just came out, they're both the same price. That is what is usually happening. But my theory here is that the Nintendo Selects will actually come a bit sooner because Nintendo is actually doing something very unusual, which they do not do often. And that is, they are making sequels to games already existing on the same console. And that might not sound like a foreign concept, but it's actually something Nintendo does very, very little if you think about it. Like, when was the last time a Mario game got a direct sequel, for example? The earliest I can think of is like Mario Galaxy 2, and that was like over 10 years ago. What about other franchises? Maybe like Pokemon Black, and it got a direct sequel. Well, that's the Pokemon company. I'm not sure if they count, but that was still in like 2012, still 10 years ago. They rarely do like direct sequels. And we are talking about Nintendo themselves here. They rarely do direct sequels on the same console, especially. So this is what might change the situation. What if the Nintendo Selects line comes a bit sooner and we get like Splatoon 2, Xenoblade 2, maybe Bayonetta 2, Breath of the Wild 1, all cut down in price so we can get a little bit more money for people who want to experience all of the games. I think that would be very good of a move. Now, for all games, they don't need to do that. But for some games, they do. I'm not sure if Splatoon 2 would really need, because the biggest component in Splatoon is the online. And I'm not sure, like, would people still be interested in buying Splatoon 2 even with a price cut if, Splatoon 3 comes out? I think it is summertime. So what kind of games would there be included if like Nintendo Selects program or the label would come to Nintendo Switch, say by the end of the year? I promised soon, but it's Nintendo. By the holiday season, get a bit more sales on Black Friday on games that are getting sequels. I think Breath of the Wild 1 would be a really good one to start with. Start out with a really big one. And especially if Breath of the Wild 2 becomes like a success, and then you really need to, get a bit more people to buy the first one because people will enjoy the second one, blah, blah, blah. And what other things there were? Xenoblade 2, possibly, yes. Bayonetta 2, sure, it's a port, that could be included. And then I was also thinking for some of the smaller games, that have still sold okay, but not like major successes. I think you could throw in something like 1-2 Switch, the Switch launch title. That could be a good game, Get some people to buy it, make it a bit cheaper, and then, do a little profit, you know. But I think it would be a really cool thing to see uh, the Nintendo Selects label come to Nintendo Switch soon. And I think they could really take good money out of it. And for some games, it does really make sense. But then there are, of course, some games that have like launched in 2017, 5 years ago, that people would want for free or would want for, you know, with a discount, not free, like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which maybe, you know, it is getting like $30 DLC, which can be a bit expensive. So maybe a small price gap would make sense, but at the same time, I don't think it is necessary. It will still keep selling, and the sales number will go up because of the DLC, even though the price is not going anywhere. So I think like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe would not need it. Games like Super Mario Odyssey, I don't think so. Most ports, nah. Again, Nintendo wants to have this perceived value of the franchises, so not all are going to be. And the one thing I didn't mention earlier about the Nintendo Selects branding or the label, or you know, the player's choice as it was known before, that it comes in like really small waves, and altogether there are usually just like under 20 games or something that give this label to. So there's not many of them. So it would just include like one or two at first. And I think those could be like games that are getting sequels now. But that is just my theory on this. I hope it happens, and I think that the Nintendo Selects thing will come to Nintendo Switch at some point. When? Yeah, that is the big question. But it could come as soon as this holiday season because of the amount of sequels we are getting. What do you think? Do you think my theory is valid at all? Or do you think it's just not that good, a bit flimsy? Why would Nintendo want to immediately, you know, cut down the price on some games? Maybe let them sit down in the store shelves for a while before, you know, cutting a price. Maybe somewhere next year still. Or what games would you like to get like a discount on, or that would make sense? No new ones, of course. Let me know in the comments below, and I have nothing else to say here, so I guess I will just see you next time. Bye bye.